Chapter 11. Pastel stucco covered the inland desert. Their housing track pit stop was near an empty divide of dry brush with the 210 freeway on the other side. A linoleum banner and balloons twitched in the wind sweeping down the San Gabriels. The gusts shifted frequently and sent the banner and balloons jumping in all directions. Chromefoot sat parked where the pavement met the expanse of dirt between their cold beers and the freeway traffic. It was all drivers coming from Las Vegas or heading there, others en route to Los Angeles or the Inland Empire. The inland summer heat was relentless, and the temperatures continued with the dusk after the sun dipped behind the horizon. Alcohol from the cool beer began tingling in Hector's arms and legs. Frankie looked up at Hector seated on the driver's side of the open trunk. "I have a confession. I've never been out here before." "To Upland? To Rancho Cucamonga?" "No, I've never been out here, any of it, the whole Inland Empire. I've passed through a few times, sure, on some road trips to the desert, but until today I hadn't spent any time here outside these freeways." "I guess that's a little shocking, but if it wasn't for skating, I'm not sure I would have set foot anywhere outside LA County," he agreed with a nod. "I grew up in Whittier, so we just had family around there. We didn't venture out much beyond backyards and parks. Maybe, we'd drive to the city or out to the beach, and we stayed local." "Makes sense," he responded with a lazy tone. "Yeah, our dad took us up to the snow once when we were really young. I still have the photos. And then we'd go to the desert sometimes, but that's it. And damn, I just realized I haven't seen snow since I was like 6 years old, Hector," she said, amused at her epiphany. "Do you get out much now that you're older?" "Well, these days I travel about as much as I did back then. My work keeps me anxious about any kind of leisure. If I'm not working on something, I don't do so well with relaxation." "A workaholic, then." "A high-functioning one," she replied with a confirming tone. "Do you get that from your parents? Were they just as hard-working when they were young?" "When they were young," she mused, "my dad walked over the border with his parents when he was a kid. And my mom's story is more or less the same as my dad's," she answered while shaking her head with some disbelief. "My family came here the same way, but about 2 more generations further back." "And how are your parents? Do you get a lot of your Hectorness from them?" she asked with a knowing smile. "My parents," Hector reacted with a grin that transitioned into a wince. "I know family stuff is where it can get weird, but I'll tell you something." Frankie smiled with a reassuring nod. "Of course, please." "It's about my parents," Hector paused. "A few years ago they were on a road trip. They were driving out across Arizona, New Mexico, Utah." Hector stopped for a moment to watch bats darting back and forth above them. "They parked their car along a mountain highway, a highway in Utah. They like that kind of thing, pulling over and improvising trails. It made their hikes more special for them, wandering off marked paths. But it was always safe, easy stuff. So after one of these hikes, they pull back onto the highway, and a few minutes later, a deer comes running into the road and directly at their windshield. And then my dad swerved, hard and off the road." "Hector," Frankie leaned over to clutch his arm as the car's suspension dipped and retracted. "I had no idea, so they..." "Yeah," he jumped in. "They both died." "I'm so sorry, Hector." "To be honest, I used to think I'd dealt with it, that I had it under control. But since I got back down here, it's this fucked up situation. I can't let it go. It's like it never really healed, and I'm feeling it again, Like out of nowhere." "Wait, where did this happen? Where were they?" "Some highway in the middle of nowhere." "And have you been there? Have you gone?" "No, I haven't. I came down for the funeral, and then I went straight back to Seattle to focus on school. I decided school was going to be the thing that kept me together. So I just did that while I lost touch with my cousins, everyone." "Don't be hard on yourself about it." She paused, unsure what to say. "Maybe it's time to go there," she suggested with a shrug. Hector looked beyond Frankie in the direction of the model-tracked homes. Blurred details and silhouettes of potential buyers were moving in and out of the rooms. A coyote trotted slowly amongst the yellow brush and dirt space between Chromefoot and the 210 freeway. They sat quiet as the sky turned to night. "I didn't expect this pit stop to go down like it did, but I want you to know that I'm glad we talked about it," Hector uttered as he shook his head. "I think I do need to get out there at some point. I just don't know when." Frankie lightly tapped her empty tall can to Hector's and kissed him on the cheek. "He worked the cranes at the San Pedro port, by the way." "My dad," Hector said, gathering himself. Whoa. Yeah, he used to text me photos from the views above all the ships and colorful containers. It was my favorite shit ever when I was growing up. They're like a bunch of giant Legos. That's what I liked to pretend when I was a kid, she replied as she stood up. My great-grandpa did too. He died in a wrecking ball accident at one of the berths. Holy, she yelled in reaction. They sat watching the coyote in the freeway for a while longer. Can you kiss me? Frankie said, breaking the silence. I was just going to ask. They made sure Chromefoot's trunk was securely closed. Frankie rounded the sedan to the cushy green passenger seat. The Crown Victoria swung a left turn while Hector and Frankie adjusted their arms along the open car windows. Hector turned up the radio as the on-ramp descended toward the open 210 lanes. There was no need to talk as they relaxed inside the comfort of the music, the hot wind, and freeway sounds. Not far behind, in the opposite direction, the 210 freeway met the lanes that would take him to Utah. He could feel the desire to drive there building up inside him. It was the first time he'd been open to the idea, and the feeling overwhelmed him. He looked at the glow of red taillights surrounding them. The fast lane sailed by at dangerous speeds. Frankie slouched in the passenger seat. Hector knew she was tired after he caught her head dipping into sleep, only for her to catch it before repeating the process again. I'm falling asleep, aren't I? Frankie said as she adjusted her posture. Yes, you are. It's the Crown Victoria. It's more comfortable in these seats than most beds I've slept in. I know, she laughed as she settled into a napping posture. After Frankie fell asleep, Hector could feel the demands of a bowel movement coming on. The freeway traffic was easy for the first half of the drive, but it eventually became clear to him that a restroom stop would be essential. Chromefoot entered the bright lights of a gas station. Frankie squinted in her chair as she straightened her posture. She stretched her limbs with a drawn-out yawn. Hey, bud, Hector smiled. Frankie exaggerated a struggling, winced expression as Hector continued. I gotta use the bathroom. You good here? Or do you want to go inside? I'll go with you. I need water. Hector walked to the back of the candy and chip aisles and felt a sense of pride having picked such an ideal gas station for his pit stop. It was a well-lit space filled with the color of chips, sodas, and snack logos. The comforting smell of disinfectant was in the air. Hector smiled when he found the restroom to be a clean, single-user chamber with a lock on the door. This was a private victory. After briefly looking for Frankie near the bottled waters, he made his way for the exit. Out near the fuel pumps, Frankie stood talking with a man wearing a gray dress shirt, workwear slacks, and dress shoes. He was thick, above average height, light-skinned, with round cheeks and lips that smiled out from a wavy black beard below a sharp-parted haircut. Spanning the length of his right forearm was a long-stemmed rose tattoo in black ink. Below his elbow on the inside of his left forearm was something that caused Hector to look more obviously in the man's direction. It was a one-eyed Japanese character that peeked out from what looked like a red motorcycle helmet. Frankie looked up to see Hector approaching and waved him over with a blank stare. Hey, can you unlock the car? He needs to use a phone, and the guy inside said no already. The man turned to meet Hector as he walked to the other side of the car to unlock the door and assess the situation he'd stepped into. Hector, this is Renee Vasquez. Renee, this is Hector, my boyfriend. Frankie's statement caused Hector's vision to momentarily blur. His brow remained locked with concern as he tried to better understand what was happening. Hey Renee, good to meet you, man. Same to you, Hector. And let me just say real quick, I really appreciate this, dude. Hector unlocked the car, and Frankie reached inside to find her phone. Hector continued the conversation to make Frankie's phone search less awkward. So you left your phone somewhere? That's the worst. Well, yeah, I mean, the good thing is that I know where it is, but yeah, I just need to make a call. Hector could tell he'd been crying. Okay, well, just let us know if it's any kind of emergency. Frankie looked up from her search to find Hector standing near the driver door. He just got released from Chino. His girlfriend picked him up and they got in a fight on the drive. She ditched him here while he was inside. Renee immediately looked more tired after her synopsis. Yeah, you know, we're good, I think. I've just been gone for like 3 years and there's a lot of tension. He's trying to contact family in El Sereno so someone can come pick him up, she added before dipping back down to continue her search. There was something humorous about her frantic digging. She was getting frustrated but had to keep her cool in the presence of the gas station stranger. Frankie raised her head once more from the search for her phone. Why don't we just give him a ride? We're going that way, right? Hector froze as his imagination managed a flood of scenarios revolving around the danger of this random man riding in their car. Well, Frankie said, turning to Renee, no pressure at all. I just figure we might be better off going this route. The way it's looking, I don't think I'm going to find this phone anytime soon, and Hector here seems to have shut down for the evening. Renee laughed and acquiesced with a nod to accept her offer. I mean, if you guys don't mind, that would be huge. But I'm serious, I don't want to, come off like I was putting on any pressure, aside from using the phone. I've already been brushed off so many times. When a random dude asks to use a phone, a lot of folks act like they've seen a ghost. Hector began to remove discarded shoes and clothing from the back seat, while Frankie located her phone in the trunk. So you're good, you don't need the phone? Nope, this ride is all I need right now. The best thing about this whole situation, Renee, Hector said with growing comfort, is that you're about to enjoy what may be one of the most comfortable car interiors currently in operation. The seats in the Crown Victoria are more comfortable than most couches out there. Just wait, you'll see. Renee shook his head with a cartoon grin as his swelled eyes reflected the bright lights of the fill station. Once again, the green Crown Victoria was floating through the IE lanes. The windows remained down and ranchero music played over the sounds of the freeway. As they were entering the city, Hector turned on the air conditioning and rolled up the windows. So where should I exit, Renee? I'll let you know when we get a little closer. It's pretty close to the 5 freeway behind downtown. You going to your family spot? Hector asked. Indeed. That wasn't the plan, but that's where I'm going now, Renee responded. Everything cool with your girl? I thought so, but I guess she needs some space. And you were in Chino for a few years, right? Yeah, I was there a little over 3 years on some drug-related stuff. Sounds cliche, but I got arrested and sentenced on some falsified bullshit. Sorry, there's no other way to say it. You either take the plea bargains or risk a lot more time locked up, so I took the bargain. Talking to Frankie about his parents had worn Hector down. So much so that they'd picked up a hitchhiker, something he thought he'd never do. This was not Hector's usual mitigation of risk. Was it Frankie that had made him feel so calm about everything happening? Somehow he'd missed something and allowed himself to participate in an openness that he would usually avoid. But Renee was cool. He knew this now. Hector knew one of the most underestimated benefits of the human experience was that the more people he met and the more experiences he had with people he didn't know, the better he could understand and read the people he came into contact with. His awareness and sense of energy in others was sharp, so he regained the trust in himself and in Renee as Chromefoot sped across the LA basin in the direction of downtown. What were you two doing out in the IE? Renee asked. Frankie turned from the passenger seat toward Renee in the back. Hector is a skateboard nerd, and he wanted to go see an empty school playground for a project he's working on. Out there? Wow, Renee laughed politely. Skateboarding's cool to me. I'm with that. Renee leaned closer to the open space above the center console. What's the project, then? Hector turned his mouth awkwardly in the direction of Renee while keeping his eyes fixed on the road. It's for this preservation group called the Ocean Green Foundation. Renee bounced up from the back seat. Wait up, like the Ocean Greenhouse? Frankie's eyes opened in surprise as she looked to see Hector's reaction. Yeah, exactly, holy shit. Hector fought for breath to laugh. I love that place, dude. You've got to be kidding me that you're working there? Oh my god, man, that's incredible. What's incredible is that you know about it. I mean, nobody knows about this place. I tell all kinds of people, and they all look at me the same, all blank stares. Same here, dude, but I know that place. You know that piano, then? I do. She does too. Well, I do now, she said with an easy grin at Hector. Renee dropped back into his seat before leaning forward again. I used to play that piano. I played recitals on that motherfucker, and I killed it. What? No, come on. I'm gullible enough. You're being serious? From when I was 10 until I was like 13, 14 years old. This is crazy, Frankie replied. Gershwin, Mozart, Beethoven, Liszt. I was good. Really, really good. Do you still play? Frankie asked. I haven't played in years. Once I got into high school, I got into high school things, you know? I know exactly what you mean, Hector said in agreement before continuing. You should come by. I'll get you my number and just contact me anytime you want to set up a visit. We got to get you back out there, Hector said, half sure of his invitation. Renee gave Hector street-to-street directions for the remaining drive through the arterial highways and side streets. It was late, and the neighborhoods were dimly lit and calm. You can drop me off at the next corner. That your spot? We're close, but it's a few blocks further down. I'd rather get out right here and walk the rest of the way. I could use a minute just to walk this walk. Hector slowed the car along the curb and Renee stepped out to the sidewalk. Chromefoot swung around in a regal U-turn and Renee stood stationary, waving back at them in the rearview mirror. The ocean greenhouse was dark and silent, resting easy amongst the grass and trees. As usual, there was a cool evening breeze outside, while the rooms inside held temperatures from the earlier hours of the afternoon. Standing along the countertop in the side kitchen, they picked at a burrito between sips of lemonade. The house didn't feel so ancient or vacant anymore. I feel like this house might be starting to like me, Hector announced. Well, you two do have a mutual friend in Renee Vasquez. Maybe the house just trusts you a little more after today. And actually, I feel like you might like me a little more after today too, he said, knowing he was speaking the truth. I don't know about that, Frankie replied. Was I mistaken, or do I recall you introducing me as your boyfriend? Okay, fair enough. But you gotta chill. I was just taking some necessary precautions to set up boundaries with a stranger, she smirked. Crickets chirped loudly outside the open windows. They spent the night inside, creating their own world, comprised of orgasms and brief sleep, followed by more orgasms and more sleep.